People ask me why I never talked about the primaries. So much drama was going on. Well, I don't really care about who won the primaries. Here's why. Democrats may look much different from each other, and the Republicans may look much different from each other. But when it comes to the voting record, lawmakers within each party are roughly the same. These are the progressive scores of US senators based on their voting records. Obviously, the most conservative Democrat is John Fetterman. He has a score of 76, way lower than other Democrats, right? The others are all in the 80s and 90s. But look at the least conservative Republican, Susan Collins. She's definitely less conservative than all the other knuckleheads, right? But if you look at her score based on her voting record, guess how much? 16. Fetterman is 76 and Collins is 16. So when it comes to how they vote, the most conservative Democrat is still 5 times as progressive as the least conservative Republican. In other words, a senator's partisanship is the single best indicator of their voting intention. The House is about the same. The personality still matters, of course. John Fetterman and Elizabeth Warren probably don't like each other very much. But the way they vote is still roughly the same. That's why I don't quite pay attention to who wins the primaries. But I'm nervous as fuck about how many D's and R's will eventually get in Congress. There was a time when Congress had a lot of cross-voting, like Democrats vote with Republicans and Republicans vote with Democrats. But that ship has sailed. In the last 50 years, the two parties became way more distinct and way more polarized over time. Trump is probably the last nail of the coffin. He made it nearly impossible for Democrats to vote with him, and also made it nearly impossible for Republicans to vote against him. Everyone is either his minion or his enemy. There's no legislative middle ground with this guy. So there's a mountain of political science literature trying to explain the polarization in American politics. I've only read maybe less than 1% of it. So feel free to search for articles on Google Scholar and quench your curiosity. I will not attempt to explain it. But I can say that the pattern is unquestionable. Every Democrat in Congress, regardless of factions, will try to block most of Trump's policies, let alone his coup. And every Republican in Congress will try to advance his agenda. They have to behave in a partisan way because that's what their voters demand of them. So I'd say don't worry too much about the who won the primaries, but you need to be extremely careful about which party wins the actual midterms, because the D's and R's behind the lawmakers' names will decide how they vote. The governors are a little harder to measure than lawmakers because they don't sit in the same room and vote on the same bills. But the anecdotal evidence is still pretty clear that in a swing state, having a Democratic governor, regardless of their personality, will still be very different from having a Republican governor. Like abortions, healthcare, cooperation with ICE, public education, basically everything will be done differently based on their party labels alone. So here I have to mention Hasan Piker again. Sorry I talked about this guy too much. He was very involved in the primaries, attacking some Democrats with all his might. And most of his endorsed candidates did win. But when one of them lost, he literally had a meltdown. So when Piker read the report about Wisconsin voter switching from Francesco Hong, the person he endorsed, to David Crowley, he was mad. He was like, I want to put boomers in the machine, in the contraption, and not just boomers, like anyone that says that. What? Sorry, I don't know what a contraption is, but it doesn't sound good. This kind of attitude is very unsettling. Apparently, Piker is not planning to help David Crowley or any Democrats he doesn't like during the midterms. based on his resentment, he may even sabotage them by saying something like, they're worse than Republicans. I just want to warn you guys about that. Piker behaves like that because he's not a trained researcher. He doesn't understand that there's a significant policy difference between any Democrat and any Republican. He doesn't understand, or maybe doesn't care, that the American institutions, let alone many people's lives, can be destroyed by a Republican victory. So please keep that in mind, guys.